Next chapter. Time passes. This is the all text video game adventure version of a Hollywood montage, which is now covering a lot of plot events, which is the production of this movie in a condensed form. So just imagine the calendar pages are flying off the screen and the clocks are turning super fast. And it looks like the stress level is lowering the quality of the film's directing. So my stress is having an impact on my ability to direct. And I also don't have any skill at it. So that's another problem. And so far, the craft is suffering from this. The extremely high level of crew stress is impacting the film's craft. The film is a little over budget. That is increasing the crew's stress. And the weak directing is causing trouble for the lesser known cast. All right, great. We seem to be on the road to nowhere. Chapter 5. Now we have an editorial in the afternoon paper. I assume this is still the Hollywood Reporter we're talking about. My studio's general manager is going to quit. I think this is now where things are branching, right? I assume this is where our decisions we made so far are resulting in serious consequences for the production. And the first serious consequence is the general manager of Bowtie Productions quitting without giving notice. And in fact, putting the I quit letter in the afternoon paper. A loyal employee, all right, now we're getting back to the political thing here. The problem is that the leader of the studio, me, is being a cheerful accomplice to the vile witch hunt of Congressman Creed. So our manager is standing up for principle, is saying, correctly so, that these are unsatisfactory working conditions, basically following government dictates on what the movie should be about, which this general manager will not stand for. And so as the head of the studio, I'm now going to have to take this hit. So people with morals, I guess, who object to Daisy Flack giving in to this government hack are leaving. So Daisy's face flushes at seeing these accusations in print. I mean, it's not an accusation, it's a statement of fact that Daisy Flack is being a cheerful accomplice to the vile witch hunt of Congressman Creed. That's, and so, of course, this is, of course, bad publicity, though, right? And again, what I was saying before, in a way, people who gave in to the government's investigation and cooperated with the government, they were in a sense rewarded by being allowed to work without government interference, right? However, the immediate negative consequence was not only basically devastating the lives of those who were victimized by this witch hunt, but also those who cooperated with the government, who were in the industry, suffered reputationally with those who were disagreeing with this whole idea that we should cooperate with the government. And this was the case then, and of course extended onward into even in the post Cold War era. Those who are remembered, those who history has shown that those who cooperated with the government were on the wrong side of history. So to this day, the legacy of those who cooperated is that they were on the wrong side and should be, from a historical perspective, criticized heavily for what they did. But we're seeing it happen now in real time, right? Which is something that also happened. And now, what is my response to this? Do I simply say, okay, this is someone who doesn't get it, or I'm just following the law? Is she suggesting we go against the will of the federal government? Obviously, she's exaggerating, and can't she see the last thing I want is to mix politics with running my studio? I mean, is Daisy Flack an ideological anti-communist? Or is Daisy just not have like an interest in this sort of thing, and so it sort of just goes along with the culture? Someone who just follows the culture and doesn't really have a stake in it, just wants to get along, just wants to get the production going. Well, I'm going to say I'm not an ideological purist in this sense, that I'm just someone who's just being ignorant, almost willfully ignorant of the situation. So I'm going to say, I'm just doing what the law requires, which is not true. There was no law that said that movies must have this or that. I mean, there was the censorship system, right, that was in some way entangled with government policy. And then you had certain unions who were somewhat pressured into conforming to this culture of anti-communism by denying certain members credits and things like that if it turned out that they were affiliated with communism, even in a second or third hand basis. It was a witch hunt, basically. So it's not like there was a law that came down that said, if you make movies that are pro-communist, or if you hire a communist on your production, you are going to jail. It's more like an industry policy that was sort of connected to government policy, which was to set up a committee, HUAC, the House Un-American Activities Committee, to investigate. So there were investigations, and the FBI was deployed to assist in some of this investigation. So in that sense, you had the law pursuing those who were suspected of having communist tendencies or connections to the Communist Party. I mean, if you were uncooperative in certain ways, like you were lying to the investigators, you lied to the FBI, you lied to Congress. If those kinds of laws were broken, then of course, then there were consequences there. But again, these were all sort of government policies of containment of communism trickling down into this kind of system of censorship and also of hiring and firing, where this became a big question. Like, are we going to hire people with affiliations with the Communist Party, or inclinations or even sympathies for communism, or not hire those people, or simply fire those who are already hired? But to say that I'm just doing what the law requires, like that is total ignorance of the situation. So that is what I'm going to say here. My Daisy Flack is just completely ignorant of what's going on, and is making all the wrong decisions because of this. Okay, achievement unlocked. Consequence. Well, let's see what kind of consequence that is. And I'm furious at the betrayal, my general manager walking out on me and then publicizing that I'm sympathetic with HUAC, and there's awkwardness around the set. Okay, and now it looks like I really have to make a decision here, which is how am I going to present myself to the crew? What is my statement here? Am I going to say the general manager is wrong, that the communist threat is real and I'll do whatever it takes to help, or politics isn't my business, or am I having regrets? Do I want to go back on my original decision here? Yeah, I'm not going to get involved. I think that's a real weaselly way out of this situation, which is to simply say, look, now that bad things are happening, I'm going to walk away from any commitment to one way or the other. I just want to ignore or deny that this is even an issue, and just hope it goes away, which is the wrong thing to do here. I mean, even if the crew doesn't like an ideological standpoint, like, oh, the communist threat is real, if you communicate that to the crew directly, at least they know where you stand, and then there'll be like a clarity there. And then at that point, they can leave or they can stay, depending on what side of that issue that they're on. But to say I'm not going to get involved no matter what, the politics isn't my business, that's sort of saying we're going to just pretend that nothing's happening here, that we're going to put our heads in the sand and just hope this all goes away. Which, if you're going to be the manager of a huge production involving many people, a lot of money, and a tight time frame, is not the way to go about it. And then the next few weeks of shooting, again, the Hollywood montage where celluloid jittering through gates, and the fried metal smell of overheated studio lamps, and triangle sandwiches of liverwurst and bologna. Directing is really exhausting. And Carter, our lead player, is doing a great job, and the footage looks pretty good. The crew is doing their best, but the stress is really getting to them, and the quality of their work is starting to suffer. We're a little over budget. day by day, the picture is getting made. Okay. Now, location shoot, day 3. This is what I've been looking forward to. Location shooting. I assume we're going to Morocco for this, right? But first, let's look at our stats. So where are we now? We're 6% over budget. Crew stress at 80%. So we've increased that, which is great. We still have the screenplay still is what it is. Production, acting is slightly improving. It looks like directing and craft though are decreasing. I guess letting the actors do improvisational stuff was the right call, or the wrong call in this sense, right? Do we even want good acting for this production? Don't we want everything to be bad? I mean, I guess if we had said follow the script to the letter, that might have resulted in some less good performances. But we'll see how this goes. And now here's our personal stats. Our stress looks about the same, actually. And it looks like we're actually the project seems to be getting a little more attention. I don't know if that's, I don't know what that means here. But we are getting along quite well with Tarn, which I assume will be bad for the production. Although Tarn seems like a good sort of person to be associated with. Seems to be very realistic, has a good sense of like film history and what makes a great movie, but doesn't have this sort of inflated ego about being in Hollywood and working on these sets. Seems like someone who would be a good person to associate with. But of course, this is someone who's working on the set at the time we're producing this movie. So this is exactly the wrong person to be romantically involved with during the production. Okay, so the personal relationship is increasing, but we'll see if that affects the project. And now we are, I guess we're on location at this point. And then we're sending Josie a postcard from the location. And remember, we're in Morocco here, so we're in the desert. Desert dunes as far as the eye can see. I'm thinking about Josie. I miss Josie. Oh, and it looks like Josie had something to say about being on location, which is when you're on location, you are putting yourself in the hands of the powers that be in that location. And I guess there was a confiscation of recording equipment by border guards. So now on location shooting, that was I would say an innovation of Hollywood filmmaking in the 1950s, in the post-war era, where where now there's a lot of incentive to get out of the studio and into these foreign locales. First of all, from a production value perspective, you're able to exploit these locations, and again, competing with television, which was mostly studio-bound production, by showing a location in a far-flung region of the world for the audience that it is intended for, which people in the US and Canada and parts of Europe. That's one reason to do location shooting. Another reason is simply financially, you can use money, and this is from the Hollywood studios perspective, you can use money that was collected by theaters in these other countries where Hollywood films are, for the most part, the most popular kind of entertainment for theatrical exhibition. But the money would frequently be blocked by the governments in control of those countries as a way of just saying, look, if you want this money from these box office receipts, you're going to have to come here and spend it. So a lot of these funds were kept by these governments, and then the Hollywood studios would say, well, okay, we'll make a movie in that location, and we'll use that money that was collected. Otherwise, we will never get it. Or if they could get that money, but it would be heavily taxed. Like, it would be worth it to spend the money there, to make a movie there. And so that's where you get movies like Roman Holiday, and also these epic adventure movies of the time, set in Japan and in parts of Europe. And these what are called runaway productions would be a major part of production slates during the 1950s. I guess that's what we're doing. Although we're not like a big studio that had all this money locked up in the government's coffers that we can just use. I mean, it looks like, to be an independent company, not a lot of independent productions would do location shooting. I mean, location shooting, they might do it in the States. Like, they might have a location shoot in a small town somewhere or in the desert of the US, right? You shoot this. I suppose if we were really a low budget production, if we wouldn't go to Morocco to shoot a desert movie, we just go to the desert that's right there next to Los Angeles, between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. But I guess we really did want to go all the way to Morocco to make this movie and probably waste a lot of money. Although it says here we did enjoy the delicious food and the cultural treats that are there for us to enjoy. But what that does for the production is an open question. All right, I bump into Vincent Cooper, and Vincent's having a blast there, our assistant director. And it looks like there was a woman running a bungalow who was cooking delicious food and giving the crew an authentic experience there. And Vincent says, "It reminds me of you, Dr. Flack." And it's interesting. So now he's trying to say something about us, which is he's trying to say something about Daisy, which is that she bends over backwards to make everyone happy. And the result sometimes, though, is the opposite. That's right. He's right. Remember that whole idea of like, how do you produce on the set? Are you going to be a hard driving producer? Are you going to be a laid back, relaxed producer? Or are you going to try to be even handed and try to adjust for the situation? If you try that even handed approach, you're gonna end up just like making everyone confused. And it sounds like everyone's collecting stories to tell the folks back home. Now, I guess we're choosing how much of this movie will be shot on location. Will it be most of the movie? Will it be a third of the movie, or just a few short scenes? The right answer is a few short scenes. The wrong answer is most of it to be shot on location. That's the most expensive way to do things, and also for the least amount of benefit. Because on the screen, like, are you really getting all that production value from a location that the audience can perceive and say, okay, this is value on the screen? There's no need to be in a far-flung location for more than just a few short scenes establishing the location. But no, we're going to be crazy. We're going to shoot most of this movie on location. And it looks like the film stock that was brought by the DP isn't doing it for us. It's washed out a little bit. Yeah, and there's a point here about technology here. So the DP has brought some color stock, and it says here that the gorgeous saturated images that we're capturing of this beautiful place, we hope that will be worth the extra expense. So that was a lot of the production value of the runaway location shoot, which is, you can put it on the poster. It says shot in Morocco, on the streets of Morocco, or in the deserts of Morocco. You'll see the real thing here, almost like a documentary kind of thing, but in a spectacular way, using the latest technology to show you things you've never seen before. And now, so what do? I can take Vincent out for drinks. I can take Tarn out for drinks. That's what I want to do. I want to take Tarn out for drinks. I want this relationship to really work out, so the production will be at risk, in a sense. So Tarn and I were having drinks, and Tarn wants to ask me something about the blacklist, about what is going on with Creed. And I seem pretty on board with it all. And then Tarn says, this censorship, he's asking Daisy if it bothers Daisy at all. Here's where I can now say, I want Tarn to like me. So I'm going to be neutral here. Why do you ask? See, I want to know what Tarn wants to hear. So, yes, Tarn says, God, good, that's good. Answer a question with a question, as if I'm being interrogated, right? So that's a good way to be interrogated, is to just throw the question back. And it looks like Tarn is, well, he's not too happy with that. He doesn't like hearing me answer his question with a question. Now I'm asked what I did during the war. Okay, so again, this is, I suppose Daisy, if Daisy is coded as being working at a studio for 10 years, that must mean Daisy is probably late 30s, early 40s in terms of age. So that means Daisy was a grown person during the war. So I guess if Daisy was serving, that might be interesting. I don't know. I don't think Daisy should be a service person, like someone who was in the war fighting. Let's just say I have a medical condition kept me out of the service. I have a condition. I worked in a munitions factory, just like Rosie. Yeah, I like these choices here because it shows you just the in World War II, the what people had to do to serve the war effort. It wasn't just going off and fighting. There was the home front as well. Even though the continental US was never invaded itself, there was this, of course, this sense of there may be an invasion, number one, but number two, like everyone needs to be mobilized. Everyone who is capable of serving in some way had to serve, whether it meant working in a factory, as we see here in a munitions factory, or taking care of family while the soldiers are away fighting. And if you wanted to serve but couldn't because of a certain condition, you could serve in other ways, like doing a desk job or something like that. I think I'm going to go for the vaguest possible response here because that will give Tarn less to respond to, and that would be a negative response, right? But I'm going to say I have a condition that made it so I couldn't really serve. And that, I guess that's my story. And now Tarn's story is going to be interesting. There was a high school sweetheart, some disapproving parents. Looks like Tarn dropped out of school, got married, and then left town at 16 years old. And then Tarn's girlfriend wanted to be a nightclub singer. Tarn followed from city to city, and it looks like they kind of lost themselves in this. So it's kind of like a road movie narrative here. That this young couple leaves home to go on the road, and obviously is struggling every step of the way. And it looks like Tarn was left broke, alone, and in a bad place. And that was before the war. So now the war comes and did what he had to do, which is unspecified here. It's not very clear what Tarn was doing during the war. But it sounds like this is what made Tarn the character Tarn is, which is someone who isn't really interested in being the leader of any kind. Just wants to kind of do what he wants to do, but is kind of closed off a bit. Doesn't want to pursue things to any extreme because it looks like he's had a whole life out on the road that was traumatic, and just wants to play it safe. But also has that touch where he wants to be close to things that are interesting. So sort of being on the periphery of something really interesting instead of being at the center. And I'm asking, have you been in love again since? Okay, that's very forward. And whatever happened to your old flame? I'm not interested in what happened to the old flame. I just want to know if Tarn has been in love again since. Now who's cutting to the chase? Tarn says. Yeah, I am going fast here, but that's the point. And then Tarn says, I used to swear I've given up love for good. Looks back at me, and I'm gonna look back. I'm looking back at Tarn. And then Tarn holds out a hand. I take it. Everything seems golden. And now I ask what happened to the old flame. I guess that question is forced into the narrative here. And I guess she died and got hit by a trolley car, died instantly. Well, that's terrible. And Tarn never made peace with this. Yeah, Tarn has some lingering trauma over losing his love so shockingly and so quickly. And he sometimes thinks he ought to go back home, visit her grave, get his diploma. I'm going to just say let the past be. So I'm basically telling Tarn to look forward, not back, in the hopes that would somehow get things going between us. So the next morning, everyone's up at the crack of dawn. Trucks going out to the desert, and there's a lot of standing around and head scratching. Things are not getting to the set as quickly as they should be. Do I crack the whip? Do I lend a hand? Or don't meddle? My people will figure it out eventually. Yeah, that sounds like a wishy-washy position. Let's do that. I trust that people know their jobs. See, that's one way to kind of rationalize just not getting involved in close management of something, with just say, I trust them to do things. They're professionals. They know what they're doing. Well, that for a seasoned producer, that might be the case. And if everyone the producer hired, they know who these people are, they know what they're capable of. I mean, sure, that there might be that trust, genuinely speaking. But Daisy shouldn't have this trust at all in this in this crew. So to have this trust is basically kind of a wishful thinking, kind of wishing away what could be the case here, which is that the crew is really not that capable. We know the crew is stressed out, so that's a problem. But now when we arrive, the sun's rising and we're optimistic. By lunch, though, the weather is turning bad. Now, this is a big issue about location shooting. You can't control the weather. And this is one of those things that causes a lot of delays in production. When you can't control the weather, you might be stuck there for days and weeks without being able to do anything. You might even have to pull the plug entirely and leave the location. And so Zemi, our assistant, said that's not what the weather report said, but we're stuck. We're stuck in bad weather. These are serious problems. So we're reaping the whirlwind here, almost literally. Like we are facing the consequences of the bad choice of going on location for so long in a place where we have no control whatsoever over the weather. Maybe we should just call it a day, said Daisy, says Zemi. I mean, what are you going to do? So call it a day, even if adding another J's shoot will be expensive. That's right. That's what we're going to do. Only available if the budget is less than over 20. I think our budget is around 8% over. So we're good with this decision. We're going to call it a day. We're going to start pushing that budget up. Start packing it up so it's not before long when the crews start turning green. Okay, here's another problem with location shooting, which is, with any travel to certain locations, there are certain precautions you have to take. You have to consider, like, what am I eating? What am I drinking? Do I have the inoculations that are required to be in certain places? Well, it looks like the crew hasn't taken those precautions, and now we have some sickness, bad weather and sickness. It says, you thought you had a good definition for the word terrifying, but driving back to the bungalow through blinding flashes of lightning, howling wind, and enough rain to give the Hoover Dam an overspill changes your mind. All right, the worst disaster possible is happening. And it looks like the trucks are sliding around like ducks in a skating rink. I think ducks would actually do quite well walking on top of a skating rink with those webbed feet. Yeah, I don't know if that simile is a really good one, ducks in a skating rink. But then one truck gets stuck, the back wheel spinning in a quagmire of black mud. All right, now we got to get out and push. Should I get out and help, or would I just get in the way? I'm just going to stay. I'm going to stay in. This is my personality. I'm just going to not get involved, right? That's me, not involved. This is great. I guess as a result of me not helping, the truck that was dug in too deep lurches forward after a hard push by the crew, and Carter, our lead player, collapses into the mud to the laughter of Vincent, the actual star, Vincent, the actual former star, who is now the assistant director, who probably had to watch this ridiculous spectacle of this no-name performer, this friend of mine named Carter, enacting this role, while Vincent is probably thinking he could play this much better. Now Carter is splat out in the mud, and Vincent finds that very amusing. Vincent says, I just can't help myself. I didn't know we were shooting gags. Well, Carter is not happy to hear that. It looks like Carter is shoving Vincent. All right, this is great. Drama on the set. Again, this is what a producer, these are the moments that can make or break a producer, an actual fight breaking out on the set between the leading player and the assistant director. Is this a really common thing that happens? I don't know. You hear about things happening but not quite like this, right? So Vincent is pushed into a mud bank, and looks like it hurt his arm, wants to kill Carter. Wow. It looks like we are just now into the next day. All right, I guess we didn't really have an escalation of that. It just ended with a shove, Vincent shoved onto the ground, but now it's like they're all in their corners, kind of steaming. And again, this is one of those things that makes or breaks a producer or a production, really. Like, how do you get this back on track? Daisy is brooding over her breakfast, trying to decide what to do. Tarn catches my eye and offers some advice. You've got to do something. He said, yes, yes, Daisy has to do something. Well, Tarn is saying exactly what I'm saying. This kind of thing can poison a production. And it's Daisy's job to make sure this doesn't balloon into something more serious. And now I'm thinking maybe they're right. Squabbling is the last thing to do. So maybe intervening would be a good thing, but it's also going to be distracting for people who have to actually make a movie, right? Do we want to intervene and make it more of an issue perhaps, or just kind of let it go, hope it goes away, and then just focus on the movie? So in other words, by making it an issue, are we going to make it worse? What should you do? Well, I think getting involved would be the right thing to do here. Therefore, we should not do that, right? Yeah, don't get involved and hope the situation blows over. Tarn sighs. Tarn is actually, that was probably the, see, now what we just did there was in terms of what we're trying to do here, which is make all the wrong decisions. By not doing what Tarn wanted us to do, we may have risked escalating things with Tarn, romantically speaking. Even though what we just did was bad for the production, which is what we want, it was also bad for our relationship with Tarn. Whatever. Well, we'll see how things go. So Carter and Vincent are coolly cordial to each other. They're professionals, right? They're trying to be professional, but the mood is in the tank. The weather does settle down, and the rest of this phase, with luck, this will be the last of the major crises. Luck is not something you want to depend on as a producer. Luck is something you want to exploit when and if it happens, when it's good luck. Bad luck is something you just can't help, and you just be ready for it. Be ready for the worst that can happen, and then just deal with it as it happens. Good luck, when it strikes the set, you want to exploit it as much as possible. But what you do not want to be doing is just hoping that there is good luck. That just shows a complete lack of faith in the production. You're just saying, "Oh, I hope we get lucky." That's a gambler's mentality, isn't it? To hope for good luck, right? That's simply a terrible way to run a production. Now, a few days later, it looks like something incredible happens. There is something magical going on. At the footage that we're looking at looks amazing. The golden light kisses the edges of Carter's face with a radiant glow. And it looks like Tarn is there to also pass judgment, saying it turned out pretty good, with a grin. But now we have Tarn saying something about opening the shutter a little wider, speaking to the DP about swapping out a different film stock. So Tarn is, now that we have a good relationship with Tarn, I guess, I wanted this to be bad for the production, but it looks like it's actually benefiting the production, because I guess now as a technician, Tarn is now helping the production as a way of helping me, I suppose. And well, okay. I was hoping for a different kind of result here, but let's just go with this. And because of that, I may have to break this off with Tarn. If this is going to be the result, if the result is that Tarn just basically saves the production because of our close relationship, I think I'm going to have to cut this off. And it looks like Tarn and I are getting a little closer, and I'm trusting Tarn. And now, okay, here we go. Now I'm saying, keep working with the DP like you were, Tarn. Push a few more shots to get this effect. See, this is where the problems can come, where you're having your paramour, your on-set love, getting more responsibility. So I'm making this executive decision to let Tarn work with the DP to get good shots like this. And Tarn is very bashful about this, and saying, felt the least I could do is give you something special in return. But now this could backfire. This could backfire if you're giving your lover more to do on the set. People notice that and they resent it. Time passes. We have another Hollywood montage. It looks like the directing is still terrible because of elevated stress, and it's also detracting from the acting, and also the crew stress is affecting the craft. So we're still over budget, and it looks like we're having trouble. So things are on the wrong path, which for this playthrough is the right path. Chapter 6. Now, where are we? We're having drinks with fish, and it looks like at the end of a day of what? Shooting, perhaps? And we having a toast. Looks like we're still in production. And it looks like this alcohol is something I like quite a bit. And Fish is saying it's his little secret. It's the good stuff. And now Fish is asking how the shoot's going. And all right, here's the report on it. Now, so we are now more over budget. That's good. The crew is more stressed out. That's also pretty good. The screenplay is the same. And now, okay, a good result with production, meaning that all the stats are continuing to decrease. We're underwater with acting, directing, and now even craft. And now my personal stress level still up there. Things haven't really changed all that much, it looks like. And it looks like, as I reflect on personally how things are going, looks like Vincent, my relationship with Vincent is in the tank. We just had that incident on the set with Vincent and Carter that I didn't really handle all that well. So yeah, that's going to be a problem. All right, we are halfway through shooting. A lot of hard work to come. Some of the most controversial material has yet to be shot. I wonder what that would be exactly. It'll take a lot of emotional energy. But the dailies are showing that something's missing. There's a spark that's missing. Well, what's missing is probably a vision, right? I'm playing a game called Hollywood Visionary, and I'm proving that it's possible to have no vision, even as you're the writer, producer, director of a major motion picture. And now it looks like your job for now, my job is to make sure I get all the footage I need, and then the real work will happen in the editing bay after this madness is over. Bad sign. Bad sign. Now, I suppose the positive of that is that Daisy had 10 years experience at the studio as an editor. So it's possible that just with the experience and skill level that Daisy as editor could potentially save this production. But if we are only halfway through the shoot and we're already thinking ahead to saving this production in the editing room, that's a terrible position to be in. And now Fish is giving us advice because it looks like we're doing things wrong. And so here's the advice. It's a common rookie mistake. You really ought to do something about this office. Saying something about the office. Now, you might think that's strange. Like, why would the decor of an office space of an executive have a direct connection to the quality and the management of a production? There's actually a lot to it. And you see Fish saying, give the office some paint, a few pictures. Nobody is going to take you seriously as a big shot producer with an office like this. Again, you might think that's something minor, but actually, no. Appearances are crucial when it comes to having a position of power, like in the Hollywood industry, where that impression that is made on people is extremely important. And to the point where you can almost think of certain moguls, certain major producers who present themselves in a particular way. Remember what I said before about managing a production. You want to be consistent. You want to show that you are a force to be reckoned with. Now, whatever that force might be, you could choose for yourself, like what that force would be, but you must have a force. You must present a force. Otherwise, nobody will take you seriously and you will have no authority. And there was the head of MCA Universal, Lou Wasserman. And Lou Wasserman, who was the head of the studio for many decades, was very famous for having an office that was very, very ornately decorated and with a huge desk, but with nothing on it. The impression would be, well, there's nothing on the desk. So Lou Wasserman is distracted by nothing. Lou Wasserman, if you're going to have a meeting with Lou Wasserman, you're having a meeting with Lou Wasserman. There's nothing else, even in peripheral vision, that's going to distract him from what you have to say. That presents a very powerful image to someone. That it creates an environment. It creates an atmosphere. And even the way you sit sometimes, let's say, and I hear about this, like especially with things like auditions, like how you walk into a room, how you leave a room, how you say hello to people. These things you might think are small, but they have huge impacts. Remember, because you have very little time to create an impression. And the stakes are so high, there's so much competition that it only takes one small thing that will turn somebody off you completely, and you have no second chance. And this not only goes for, let's say, actors and actresses who are auditioning, it also goes for, let's say, directors who want to get a job as a director. So the producer invites them to a meeting, and you hear about this happening. Like they'll set up a table where there's a lot of chairs, and perhaps there's a big room with a big window looking out into onto, let's say, the Hollywood Hills, and you have this table with a lot of chairs. And then the director who wants the job walks into the meeting, sees the producer is there, maybe an assistant, maybe someone else, but then all these empty chairs. So the director, the one basically auditioning for the job of director, has to choose a chair. What chair do you choose that will make the right impression? And you hear about this happening. Like these things are set up. Like, so producers get a sense of like, all right, what kind of director would this be? And let's say you sit with your back to the window. A producer might take that as a sign that that you really lack a sense of control over something, that you're willing to turn your back on, on the vista. And that, whereas if you sat facing the vista, facing the window, then that would say to the director, that would convey to the director that perhaps you're someone who is quite naturally suited to having the view of the vista, as being able to see the vista. And the producer might be very impressed by that and say, well, this is obviously a director who likes to have that sense of control over the vista. So that director might get the job. Again, this might all sound silly, but it actually is very important. And how you dress and things like that, it's all very important. So Fish is correct. You've got to do something about this office. I say all that, but there's no follow-up. Like it looks, there's nothing to do here. Maybe in the future there'll be a choice I can make to improve my office, which would make a better impression. But anyway, so how's Fish doing? And you'll get a kick out of this. So it looks like Jonathan Creed has revisited the set and talked to Fish. And we hadn't seen Creed in a while. I mean, we were in Morocco, so maybe Creed just waited till we got back. And Fish says, politicians are like mosquitoes, Daisy, that you think they've buzzed off and then zip. Now, let's see. Do I defend Creed? Do I be sarcastic about Creed? I'm just going to be neutral about this. See, my whole attitude at this point is just like, whatever. I'm not going to get involved either way with this issue, because that would be a way of conveying a lack of principle and basically like someone who doesn't really have a vision at all, not even a political ideology, just someone who's like an empty shell. And let's see, Fish is reporting that Creed is asking all kinds of questions about that Fish himself might be sympathetic to the Communist Party. And I'm being neutral here. Creed says that Fish had been seen leaving and entering apartments at 99 Maplewood, where a known member of the Communist Party holds regular meetings. Oh no. See, this is what happens. Even a secondhand or third-hand connection can mark someone as potentially a communist sympathizer. And that just cascades into like endless investigation. So Fish says, I told Creed my private affairs were none of his goddamn business. And if he really wanted to piss away American tax dollars investigating me and didn't mind being a laughing stock, Fish is very adamant. He's not going to be bullied by this government hack. Let's see. That's all for that. So now I head back to my place and let's see, skimming the Times. I assume that's the Los Angeles Times. There's an ad for a revival of one of my favorite films. Doesn't say what it is. And let's see, I can go to the movies. I can invite somebody. Now, okay, here's the thing. I'm already a little nervous now about Tarn. I should be pursuing this relationship, hoping it will have a really very bad result. But it looks like Tarn was actually useful to the production because that we're getting along so well. Should I just go to the movies by myself? That way, nothing, I'm not making anything better or worse. Just keep things as they're going, which is bad. Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to the movies by myself. And again, this is the early 1950s. There's no cell phones, right? I'm basically saying I am persona non grata. I am checking out. No one can reach me. I'm untouchable for the next few hours, which is usually not a good thing to do as during in the middle of a production. And let's see. Oh, I get to pick one of my favorites. Look at these choices: Rear Window, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Singing in the Rain, The Grapes of Wrath, The Wizard of Oz, Destination Moon, and Frankenstein. Now, it's weird Rear Window is there and Singing in the Rain. This is supposedly a revival house. It's the early 50s. Rear Window and Singing in the Rain are mid 50s productions. So that would be a first run thing. And let's see. There are no bad choices here. I mean, I suppose see, I want to have bad taste, right? Because that's my character, someone who just doesn't know anything really. Destination Moon, that's probably the worst of the choices here. So let's go with that one, Destination Moon. I'm not going to say what the best is. Let's see, we get to the theater, and then another bow tie gentleman in the booth. Bow ties are hot in the early 1950s. I did not know this. I guess we shouldn't be surprised. I am eating popcorn, watching Destination Moon. I'm on the edge of my seat at the rocket ship's illicit launch. This is good. It describes things that happen in the movie. And so I walk out feeling great. And then, oh, there's something happens. There's a column of smoke that turned pale orange in the distance. And that smoke is coming from somewhere close to the lot where we're shooting. Driver, I shout, follow that smoke fast. See, I neglect the lot and go to the movies by myself, and now I'm paying the price. And let's see. It looks like, yes, the fire is coming from Polka Dot Bowtie Entertainment. All right, Tarn is there to greet us. B stage is burning. I jump out of the cab. Is anyone inside? Tarn doesn't know. Some people were working late, but no clue if anyone was in there. And now we only have seconds to decide what to do. The fire can spread to C stage, and everything can be destroyed. But if a person is trapped in B stage, it might be too late to help them if we wait till the fire department gets here. Now there's a crowd here, I guess. Now I have to make a decision to galvanize the crowd into action. But the fire engine sirens are getting closer. So maybe I should leave this to the professionals. Again, see again, this another way of just not making a decision, which is to just trust the professionals know what they're doing. In other words, saying, don't look at me, you know. That's what I'll do. I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to wait for the firefighters to get here. I tell Tart it's too risky. Yeah, it's too risky. It's only everything that's at risk here. It's everything is at risk right now. So the solution is to do nothing. The fire department arrives. Studio B is burning. Fortunately, the fire is contained before C stage is damaged. All right, we contain at least those losses. And it says it's a good thing we haven't been pushing the crew harder, or who knows what might have happened. So it looks like no person was killed. So that's good. But B stage is an inferno. So by the time the fire department leaves, their clouds have moved in and the night is black and dim. And it's totally gutted, Studio B. Tarn takes my hand. What's going to happen now, Dr. Flack? What'll happen to the Green Promise? I don't know. Next chapter. Chapter 7. Okay, where are we? We are Mulholland. So we're on Mulholland Drive. And production has come to a dead halt. We have to get the movie back into production. So shooting has stopped. Everything has stopped. But of course, the money is still flying out the door. You know, once a movie goes into production, even if you pull the plug, you still have all your losses. And then you're still like dealing with expenses all the time just to keep the thing going. Yeah, and then we need more money to finish it, right? More than we needed to begin with. We talk to the bank, but they won't help you. We have no personal savings. What we need is a private investor. Oh, I see. So what we're doing is we're on Mulholland Drive, driving to a rich person's house. So this is not the studio. This is Mulholland Drive. So we're going to an estate of someone who can help us. A Hail Mary is what we're trying here. So let's see. The status report is bleak. We're nearly bankrupt. And yeah, everything else is terrible. The craft is going down. Yeah, bad news. Personal life. For some reason, my personal stress, I believe that's gone down. That's strange. And then my relationship to the grip, that's gone down slightly as well. I guess because I didn't invite him to the movies to see Destination Moon. Let's see, a couple of days ago. Now we have a little flashback. So we're going to find out where we are now. Whose house, whose estate are we crashing here to beg for money? And Zemi and I were looking at lists of names. So who is this? Is it going to be our wealthy sister Romana? Is it going to be a mercurial Arabian prince named Faisal Rakim? I don't know how true to life that is. An Arabian prince is something that, I mean, this kind of money came later, like foreign investments into motion picture production. See, the exchange here is, so the Hollywood industry needed money from any source, and those who had the money to invest, they could, in exchange, probably going to be a losing proposition in terms of investment. Like they're probably going to lose money investing in motion pictures. However, they do have access to the glamour of Hollywood. That's what draws a lot of these private investors to the industry, not so much to make money, but to have entryway into, you know, this world of gods and goddesses, right? Where you feel like you're now mingling with the most beautiful people on earth, right? But anyway, another retired star, Greta Garbo, who owes me a favor from my studio days. Okay, this is completely ridiculous. Okay, first of all, Greta Garbo, as a retiree, was nowhere near Los Angeles. Greta Garbo lived in New York City after retiring. So this is absolutely absurd. But there's only three choices here. My sister, the Arabian Prince, or Greta Garbo. That's really strange. You know, I'm thinking Garbo would be the worst choice. Just knowing what I know about Garbo, she would never do this. We would get nothing from Greta Garbo for this movie. All right, so let's pick that. That's good. I did a kindness once for Greta early in her career. She said she'd never forget. My God, what was that? When she retired abruptly from the silver screen, it was a blow not just for movies, but everyone who knew her. But on the other hand, her withdrawal from public life after a few would-be comeback attempts fell through. That's true. There were attempts to get her back into the business, but she rejected all of them. Got close a few times, but simply no. Nobody's heard from her much. Maybe she wants nothing more to do with Hollywood. Maybe, you'd think so, right? Am I going to pin my hopes on Greta? Yeah. After Greta agrees to meet you, impossible. In a surge of optimism, I contact the prince and my sister anyway. All right, but the prince has left the country and Romana, my sister, just laughs. I like that. If Greta Garbo won't help you, there's nobody left. Oh my word. You might as well pin all your hopes on, I don't know, Charlie Chaplin. You might as well pin all your hopes on the president of the United States. You might as well pin all your hopes on, I don't know, General MacArthur. You have just as much chance with those people as you do with Greta Garbo. So, but I cleared my schedule. What would be the best use of the time before meeting Greta? We have 5 hours before meeting Greta. What would I like to do? Well, what's the point of this? Well, I guess I could do work. I could, or pursue my relationship with the grip. Or I could just take a walk to calm down and need to be at my best. Or I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready. We're not going to do anything here except linger outside the gate of this fictitious Mulholland Drive estate of Greta Garbo's for 5 hours. All right. Now Zemi is trying to give us a little encouragement. Sarcastically, you know, Zemi's a character. Like she's one of these sarcastic Hollywood types who's just seen it all and is just like a tough talking, you know, a no nonsense kind of character. All right, you'll do fine. No, I won't. The gate swings shut. Everyone's counting on me not to screw this up. All right, let's screw this up, shall we? I park in the gravel drive. There's a well-dressed butler to say greetings, Mrs. Garbo. Mrs. Garbo. Now Greta Garbo didn't have assistants like this, didn't have live-in assistants. She had confederates, she had confidants, she had people to basically help keep others away, right? But Garbo's basic idea was, she has her routine, she has her select group, and if you stay out of the public eye long enough and you just keep to a certain secretive routine long enough, everyone leaves you alone. You don't have to worry about having guards and assistants all over the place to protect you from the public. I mean, people would see Garbo all over the streets of New York, like browsing in bookstores or clothing stores, and they wouldn't bother her. They wouldn't bother her because they knew they were going to get nothing from that. It was enough just to say, I saw Garbo. You didn't bother her. I mean, in New York City, you kind of there are people like this that just kind of live their lives. They may be very famous, but the culture is we leave these people alone, let them do their thing. That was the case with Garbo. So yeah, this butler doesn't make any sense. But anyway, he's telling us there's an important phone call Garbo is taking. With whom? Waiting in the library. And as I'm running my finger across the books, you remember Greta's love for reading. Well, yeah, that's true. She loved to read. Looking around the walls, you don't see a single shred of her Hollywood past. No posters, no framed photos. That rings pretty true. You hope you haven't made a mistake of dredging up a part of her life she'd rather forget. Yeah, see, that's with Garbo, when you're out, you're out. When you're in, you're in. When you're either on the bus or you're off the bus. And very few people could get on from off. Usually it was getting off from on. So let's see. There's a newspaper headline that silent era funny man Fish Grundy is held in contempt. All right, Fish Grundy, turns out, being uncooperative with Mr. Creed, Congressman Creed, is being held in contempt of court at a special congressional hearing. Well, that's not really contempt of court. That's contempt of Congress. Congress is not a court. I mean, Congress makes laws, but the judicial branch is a different thing. But you can be held in contempt of Congress, which I assume this is what this should say. And it looks like Fish Grundy is alleged to have attended a number of Communist Party meetings at a well-known, what's called a red address, 99 Maplewood Street in Los Angeles. I think there actually is a 99 Maplewood Street. I think Maplewood Street is an actual street. But anyway, to have met there a number of party members with connections to Soviet spy networks and propaganda machines. Charges have not been filed against Mr. Grundy, but his name is expected to be added to the Hollywood blacklist. All right, I guess we have a serious choice to make. So one of our performers is going to have to leave the production. You can't believe it. How could they go after Fish? He's one of the sweetest people I know. Surely these allegations are false, but if they are, why didn't he just say so? Yeah, like why didn't he do this or that? It's not the fault of the system, right, for putting people in these terrible positions that they couldn't get out of. No, it's his fault for not giving them what they want, right? Or if he didn't have what they want, telling them he didn't have it and to prove he didn't have it, as if it was his burden to prove his innocence. Ridiculous. But that's my morally bankrupt character here. That's what Daisy would think. Okay, thinking about this, when Greta Garbo steps into the room, how exciting. Daisy, she says, I'm not going to do a Greta Garbo impression, but if you've heard Greta Garbo's voice, you can fill in the blanks here. It's been such a long time. Now, do I say, it's good to see you too, you're looking wonderful, or you're looking wonderful suggestively? Flirting with Greta Garbo? Can I get away with that? Let's try that. You're looking wonderful suggestively. Oh my, she laughs. Well, actually, yeah, that's kind of, even though her image in movies was of this goddess type of persona, right? Someone who's simply above normal people, like on a celestial level of beauty and elegance and grace and all this. Everything you hear about her as a person was that she was more down to earth, right? This idea that she was this hoity-toity type of person is not true. So maybe flirting with her was actually something that would be cool, like that might help my chances. So I should probably stop that. Greta, pity old Grundy, Greta says. This whole business with the blacklist is monstrous, like the thing Europe was becoming when I first came here. Speaking of Europe, with the blacklist, like a lot of filmmakers in the US left the country to escape the communist witch hunts and went to Europe. And like Orson Welles was someone who went off to Europe because he didn't want to deal with these investigations. Not even investigations of himself, but investigations of his associates. He didn't want to deal with that, so he went off to Europe. And but now Greta Garbo is still in the U.S. Let's see. You've mostly, she's now saying to me, you've mostly gone along with Creed and his demands. Are you planning to on becoming more of an activist in the future? Oh, absolutely not. I'll try to stay out of politics from now on. Wishy-washy. That's what I want. I'm wishy-washy. I'll try to stay out of politics from now on. And she's skeptical. Yeah, well, she's asking if I came in from hors d'oeuvres. The butler. See, none of this. I mean, this is something from a Greta Garbo movie, not something from Greta Garbo's life, probably. Lobster and roe. What? Am I going to try a bite of this delicacy at all the society parties that Greta Garbo probably hated? It's delicious. It's okay. It's terrible. um, I think okay. Here's the thing: the actual Greta Garbo would hate that crap. The actual Greta Garbo like New York food, and if I say it's terrible, that's probably actually a good thing. I'm just gonna be neutral. Just stay neutral. That'll be my best chance here. It's okay, I suppose. Again, skeptical. Yeah, keep her skeptical. Keep her doubting, like where I'm coming from and who I am. Now see, Greta Garbo says, personally, I find it quite revolting. But it's not the done thing at fancy Hollywood parties to say so. This is great. So we have almost this like the player of this game who didn't know this about Garbo as an actual person would probably make the mistake of thinking, oh, I should say these delicacies are delicious, when Garbo herself would probably not think they were or even like them. So I dodged a bullet there, but although if I'd said they were terrible, I'd probably get her more on my side. So it's good that I went for the neutral response. And she says, I put stock in people I can trust to give me their honest opinion. Okay, which I did not give her. Greta is mixing herself a drink. Let's get down to business, she says. She's heard the trouble of the studio. We need funds. I lay out the situation. And Greta says she'll never forget what I did for her at that soundstage. Still a little vague what happened back then. I'm very curious what happened there. She doesn't know the first thing about my project, so I need to sell her on the project. I need to convince Greta Garbo. Greta waits patiently. What do I do? There's an option to try to seduce her. Wow. I mean, in a role-playing game, I would go for this entirely, right? Just to see what would happen. I have a weird feeling it might actually work. But let's just say I made my best case. I'm gonna just basically I'm again leaving it up to others to make the decisions, which is a terrible thing to do. I've done all I can. I hope that's good enough. Greta says, I'll be straight with you, Daisy. I'm not impressed. She's going to offer a minor investment, helping with some of the costs of the fire. But she says, I want full creative control over the film. All the major decisions run through me. Okay, first of all, that would never happen. But second of all, I wouldn't mind that. I mean, as someone who was like, Greta Garbo always had good instincts about not necessarily about what makes a successful movie, but who good people are. And she always stuck with the same people. And now one of the complaints about Greta Garbo's career, and if you look at the roles she played and the movies she was in, that there were not a lot of great movies, you would say. And she didn't really work with these visionaries, like Marlene Dietrich worked with Joseph von Sternberg. Greta Garbo worked with people like Clarence Brown, people who were competent, like they were technically competent, but they didn't have these grand visions. In a way, you can almost sense that was Garbo's point, which is to say that she herself would be the spectacle. Whereas, a director like an Orson Welles or someone like that would impose too much of a vision on that. So, I mean, there are a couple of what are legitimately called great movies in Garbo's career, like Camille and Ninochka. But that's one thing to say about Garbo, is that is that she liked to work with certain people, knew what she wanted, and I think Garbo at this point can sense that that the green promise is not working, and she can probably make some decisions to fix it. And let's see. Oh, here we go. Now, finally, see, this is what I wanted with Tarn. Great. So Garbo says, I've heard you become involved with a grip named Tarn McKinsey. I want this relationship to end effective immediately. Garbo is saying exactly what needs to be said. Garbo says, I have no trouble with them working on set. I just want the personal relationship to cease. Garbo should take over this production to make it a success, right? But I'm stupid, so I'm not going to do that. So what am I going to say here? Take the low funding, take the moderate funding, agree. No, ask what Tarn has to do with this. I'm going to be a jerk. Garbo shakes her head. I have my reasons. I don't have to explain them to you. She doesn't have to explain them. They make perfect sense. Those are the terms, take them or leave them. Well, these choices are strange. Like I can either give up creative control or agree to stop seeing Tarn. Huh. Well, okay, I guess on balance, the worst decision here is to take the low funding and give up creative control. Because even though Garbo's creative instincts would probably be welcomed to make this production more of a success, the way things are right now with me as the writer, producer, director, just having anyone come in to take over creative control probably wouldn't make it better. I mean, if anything, it would make it even worse. It would be such a beclouded vision that couldn't. And remember, looking ahead to saving this in the editing room, we're making things much harder to save by doing this. And I insist here, not agreeing to stop seeing Tarn. I can see now that this is a risk to the production, so I want to keep it going. So I'm going to take the low funding, which means we don't get as much money, and then give up creative control. So keep the dangerous relationship with Tarn, get less money than I could get, and then give Garbo total creative control of the production. Oh, this is shaping up to be a double disaster. It's settled then, Garbo says. I'll have my lawyer draw up the paperwork right away. You should have the funds and get back to work by the end of the week. I hope I don't live to regret this deal. This is awesome. This is awesome because I love Garbo, and being able to work with Garbo in a fantasy role-playing game like this, like a choose your own adventure thing, is great. So Aaron Reed, kudos to you for putting Garbo in this game. Time passes, things are looking terrible. Garbo's consulting adds some stress, but improves the quality of the acting. Oh no. uh, but you know, the acting was the least of our problems at this point, right?